What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the Alto again, and this time we are here with Missio. Thank you both so much for being here. It is great to have you here.
Thanks, man. It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's so awesome to have you here. First question I wanted to ask is you guys are on tour together right now. We got one in the green room and one elsewhere. How are you guys not in each other's presence when you're on tour? Are you like gearing up for like a Spinal Tap moment or like one of the members?
Yeah, we're actually in the same green room with this crazy little divider, and it's just barely working because we can both kind of sort of hear the other one's phone. But yeah, so we're pulling off some internet magic right now.
Yeah, I gotta say, I will say that Matt's Wi-Fi is already better than yours. but it's so awesome to have you here because I Am Cinco is the latest album. And it's absolutely kick-ass. Was the intention of I Am Cinco to just make like sort of like a follow-up or a continuation or a sequel to Villain? Or was this meant to be like new uncharted territory, almost like a new beginning for Missio?
Definitely the latter. For us, we write a lot of music because we love writing songs outside of all the other cool things that it comes along with being in a band. We're just always writing, and so we ended up kind of meeting up one day after some time off, and we were talking, and I was like, yeah, man, I have a bunch of demos I've been working on. And David was like, oh, dude, crazy, I have a bunch of demos I've been working on. And we did this listening session throughout the day, and we realized how many songs we had and all different genres and kind of all over the map. And so we loved majority of them. And so we were just like, look, it's our fifth album. It's a big deal to celebrate five. And so we wanted to kind of go a little extreme, and that's one of the reasons why we ended up doing the deluxe album with 26 songs on it. But it was definitely it was uncharted territory for us to do something this big and with this many songs.
Did you want to add anything to David on how like this album signified a new beginning for you as well?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of subtle things behind the scenes that I personally think about when I think about this record. I think we kind of had both reached a point where the pressure to do anything too like non-authentic was really not there, like comparing it back to like some of the earlier days where there was pressure to write some quote unquote hit or whatever. And so we were just, and then also, we just ended up working on this record a lot alone, like meaning just Matthew and I. We actually spent time in Mexico City doing the majority of the record by ourselves out there, recording, writing, and doing it all at the same time together. And so I think we just had so much fun. And so, and also just left feeling very confident in our process and our writing process because we love how it turned out, and it was also the most fun that we've ever had making a record. So there's a lot of things I'm just really proud about because there were just subtle things like that behind the scenes,
Missio is definitely an experimental band. I mean that as a compliment because when you compare like Villain to I Am Cinco just alone, there's a lot of evolutionary jumps. And then, with Can You Feel the Sun and so much more, there's so much experimentation involved. There's so many different elements. Do you go into the making of an album with a preconceived vision or sort of like an idea in mind? Or is it very improv and very sort of like throwing paint at the wall and seeing what sticks?
Definitely the latter. I mean, you being a tattoo artist, you probably understand, like when you go to start a new piece, you kind of don't, sometimes you do know what's going to come out and sometimes you don't. And that's kind of the beauty of art and making art.
It's scary.
And yeah, it is scary too. But I think one of our biggest strengths is we've never relied on the pressure of writing hits. We've always wanted to express ourselves like painters do, where you go in with new colors or new canvas every time and you just see what comes out based on how we're feeling, our perspectives, our experiences. And I don't think we're ever scared to tap into a genre if it's outside of our wheelhouse, so to speak. Like we've done R&B tracks before, we've done aggressive metal shit before, we've done hip hop stuff. And I think what's cool about our band is we have a variety of different influences combined, and then with our producer as well, where we're tapping into different folk things that we used to love, Nick Drake back in the day, or maybe Led Zeppelin, or maybe it's Death Cab for Cutie or Deftones or whoever. And it kind of comes out in this unique thing that is Missio.
Did you want to add something too, David?
I think in terms of what makes us unique and and connecting that specifically back to I Am Cinco is kind of the insaneness that is 26 songs that are split into 5 EPs, each EP sort of having their own genre, if you will, or emotional genre, both musically and emotionally speaking. Like, it's really not an idea that fits the music business. It doesn't really, I mean, in some sense it does, because streaming is really about numbers and things like that. But when it comes into like, when you go into like the Spotify page and you see 26 songs and you start with the first 5 songs and they're all the most sad shit you've ever heard, you know, we've had challenge fitting our idea in, but that is what I love about it too, because that's our story as well. That's Missio's story. We don't necessarily fit. We do a lot of different things, and we live in a world that, or at least we're coming from a world, musically speaking, where bands and artists were kind of expected to run in their lane. You know, Matthew and I are out here just kind of like intentionally breaking those rules because we don't believe in them, you know? And so that's, again, I Am Cinco represents that to the extreme with like a double album. It's reminiscent of some of the things that I grew up listening to, like Physical Graffiti or Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness or The Wall, or like these epic, you know, I'm not saying our album's a concept album necessarily, but there is a concept to it, you know?
100%. And I wanted to get into the concept actually second, but you brought up another point too. And that is because I do think that the future of music is rather genreless in a way, which I know that, like, you know, 10, maybe even less years ago, that's almost sacrilege in like the music business. Like, you got to be a metalcore band, or you got to be a death metal band, or you got to be a rock band or something like that. But in the wake of the rise of the spirit boxes and the sleep tokens and the bad omens and the Dance Gavin dances and so on and so forth, it seems like the future has been a lot more genreless, and I can definitely consider that with Missio. I mean, my instant analysis of not just I Am Cinco, but your whole catalog is, I don't know what to call this band, and I mean it as a compliment.
Absolutely. It's a blessing and a curse, honestly, because, you know, to bring the music industry back existing in that world, if you can't be classified, it's difficult for playlisting and things like that. But as artists, which is what we rely on first before thinking about business shit, we're just kind of following our gut and chasing what makes us feel something. And I totally agree with you. I don't think that genres are a thing. I just heard a quote the other day from this guy, Kent Osborne, death to all genres. And I'm like, fuck yeah, dude. I love that.
Yeah, but I do agree that sometimes the genre thing is definitely, like, look, I'm not going to market Morbid Angel or Cannibal Corpse or Cattle's Decapitation to somebody who's listening to, you know, I don't know, who's going to a Billie Eilish concert. Maybe they will grow into like metal in the future, but you kind of gotta like ease their way into it. I think like the genre thing is cool in and of is understandable in and of itself, but I do think that not having the genre is almost a good answer to that as well.
Definitely.
And because again, like there are bands where they're undeniable what you see. Cannibal Corpse is a death metal band. You know, Mayhem is a black metal band. You know, Hailstorm is a rock band. So I think that there is sort of like objective ways of looking at the genre, but then I do agree that as well that you can have multiple styles where you don't know what to call it, and that's definitely a good thing.
Yeah, well, and the goal too for us is, I mean, we want people to be listening to our catalog as much as possible. So the more genres that we tap into, it keeps people listening. Like if people are in a sad mood, they can listen to a bunch of Missio songs that are sad. If they want to get more aggressive, we have a bunch of songs that are more aggressive, and it kind of keeps them, to me, Radiohead does a great job of that because their catalog is so immense, and they tap into so many different sounds and experiences that you can stream their shit all day long and still not get to everything. So I think that that's cool to kind of keep people in the Missio world as long as possible without necessarily having to make their own playlist with 50 different artists. You know what I mean?
100%. Now, David, you mentioned my favorite word, and that's concept in a way, because would you consider Missio's music to approach things from a very lyrical standpoint, where maybe lyrics or a lyrical idea could influence the sound of the music as well. I believe Loner was the first album in a way, and when you look at songs such as Animal or I Do What I Want, there's attitude and emotion in there where I wonder if sort of like there was a theme that dictated the actual sound and so on and so forth.
As far as I Am Cinco goes, like it's not a concept album in the like the common definition of like, hey, we came up with a story and some sort of a narrative and we wrote music to that. But it is a concept album in the fact that all of the pieces add up to tell a story that is greater than the individuals alone. And so the way, we kind of around halfway through, it's 26 songs, and we probably had about 12, like an album's worth of songs sort of done, and then the other songs were in demo form, and that's when we kind of formed the idea of kind of breaking it into like emotional moments in different EPs so that we can kind of lean in all of the different directions. Like we've had many aggressive electronic type songs, but now we have a whole EP of it. We've had a lot of sad songs. Now we have a whole EP. And so it allowed us to just go in all of these different directions. And the concept is made cooler because I think, it's kind of counter narrative to what is said, which is just, you have to be one thing. Everybody in the world is telling you, vote this way or vote that way or be this or be that. And kind of the way Matthew and I feel in general about things, there's a lot of ways. And so I Am Cinco is like, basically, you are a lot of different things, but you're not just defined by the one emotion you're feeling at the time. And so there's a story in that of like mental health, which is something that we've been speaking to since the beginning of Loner and all of the things. And frankly, is just deeply rooted in our music is just mental health type stuff,
Yeah. Well, I mentioned this earlier in another interview, but like sort of like the saying, you could be spiritual but not religious. I feel like an album could be conceptual without it necessarily being a concept album at the same time. So, and I think we just lost David. I just saw that as phone froze up a little bit, but all good. But there he goes. He's back. Thought I lost you for a second, but one question I did want to ask too is because when artists tell me that everything came collectively and everything was a mutual understanding, I don't necessarily believe that because a band is a collaborative effort. It's different artists coming in with different experiences and different tastes and different backgrounds collaborating. Do both of you really need to be in the same headspace when writing together, or could your different emotions or different frame of minds maybe actually help add to the sound of Missio?
I'd say 9 out of 10 times we are on two different headspaces, just because to your point, we exist different lives, we have different experiences, and I think that's what makes Missio beautiful in our songwriting. There are strengths that David has that are my weaknesses, and vice versa. And I think the collaboration between the two of us when we come together and work on shit is really what makes it cool. I mean, in a lot of senses, I'm not a huge old school music fan. Like I didn't really grow up listening to older bands. He did. And so I think some of the nostalgic sounds that he comes from with a lot of the future sounds that I kind of enjoy and listen to and try to find out, that's kind of what makes these unique songs like Everybody Gets High on that Loner album, where it's kind of this weird nostalgic but fresh future feeling vibe at the same time. So I definitely agree that the differences between the two of us are kind of what make it work.
Did you want to add anything to that, David, or did
Yeah, what he said about us having different sets of strengths and honestly different sets of weaknesses, like we realized very, very early in our working relationship that, his gifts as a songwriter, for example, being just like this insanely good melody writer and lyricist and all these other things that have been present in his writing since the beginning. Then I brought really good arrangement. I brought really good engineering. I know how to make everything sound really good. And then just like that was my background, because I was a producer and an engineer working in a studio for years when I met him. And so and then that's not thinking about our tastes, we both just value creativity, stuff that's fresh and new. And like, I think he definitely comes from an electronic future space, and it's just a cool blend that I guess frankly is not very common, just because of how unique both of our skill sets are.
Yeah, I think if you form a band where everybody has the same tastes and everybody has the same influence and everybody has the same idea, that it tends to create something very static in a way.
I agree.
How do you both know when you're finished with the song?
I mean, if we're listening to a song over and over and over and vibing the fuck out in the studio and getting up from our chairs and dancing, that's usually a telltale sign it's pretty close to being done. And I can honestly say this, I think there may be one or two songs out of our entire catalog that I would go back and maybe change something slightly, but everything else, I mean, is truly just it's our art. I mean, it's totally finished. So usually we're trusting our instincts on how it makes us feel.
Once like we have a song that we're trying to finish, everybody's vibing and kind of understands the core of it. So like at that point, me, I quickly get like a list forming of my head. Like, okay, I hear like a riser happening there. I hear something second verse happening there. I need to do something here. Like I just have a list of things that I literally am hearing, as well as Matthew and our other producer does, and we'll just start that. And it's just like, okay, knock those things out and make sure that, or like, hey, a new bass line needs to happen here. Whatever those things are, we all kind of just hear them the first day working on them, and then it's just about finishing it. And then once that's done, everybody's typically ready to, it's like there's another is it ready for mix, which is a whole different thing, at that point. But we all agreed on certain lingo. It's like, yeah, that's a mix note, we're not going to worry about that, let's move on, this is tracked. So
That's and you led me perfectly into the final question, because just from talking to all of you, and I could definitely see it in the music, that you both technically know what you're doing, from everything from arrangement to mixing and mastering. Like the technical proficiency is a force to be reckoned with in Missio's music. But I'm also I am able to see that there's a lot of emotion demonstrated in it, and a lot of your artistic soul and your heart and whatnot. Do you find that you have to have a balance? Sometimes I've always noticed that sometimes people get so artsy that they end up delivering something that could be a little half-ass and then probably justify it by calling it avant-garde or something like that. But like, that they tend to let their artistic heart sort of like take over the sort of part that you need to be down to earth for. But then there is also people who are so technical that there's no spirit or heart in it at anything. So is there sort of like a balance that you both try to maintain with having the emotional side of Missio and the more technical side of Missio?
Man, I'll tell you, perfect that on this album, I Am Cinco, there are moments that require both things, and you have to know the time to use which strategy. And I'll give you an example of like when on the song, the very first and I Can't Speak, and Matthew wrote that song in the moment like of being heartbroken, deeply, and he literally but I recorded it into iPhone, and we had to choose out and whether to take a real recorded in real moment on an iPhone, or if we wanted to redo it technically better, sound better, make it sound perfect, whatever we want, And we all unanimously voted to keep the original vocal, because it is about moment and it's about communicating that moment with people. And like I said, we obviously don't keep the demo vocal every time, but that one time we kept it,
Yeah. It's sometimes things just fall perfectly into place. Did you want to add something as well, Matt?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of going back to the collaboration between us two and then also our producer. There are times definitely where I'll bring an idea in and it's way too far, and it's really helpful to have a third perspective come in and say, this is cool and there are parts of this that work, but let's scale it back because it is too avant-garde or it is too experimental or whatever. And being able to have people that I personally work with and that we work with that we really trust their opinion and their experience in the music industry and the songwriting and the craft to help us in those moments, be that kind of third pair of eyes, I think has really helped our band in a lot of different ways and kind of helped us hone in when we're getting a little too far outside the box. Because there are definitely moments where we are too technical and there are other moments where we're too emotional. And I think having somebody come in and just kind of see how the pieces all fit together and make the puzzle work as a whole is really helpful. And at first, when this band started, I had a little bit of an ego and I was afraid to bring other people in because I wanted it to be my thing and I wanted it to be my art that I wanted to express. And I learned a really valuable lesson in that a lot of times it's better when you invite other people into the process, when you get other people's opinions and experiences and perspectives. It really makes a beautiful thing, and that's what Missio is. So yeah.
To quote one of my favorite cartoon characters, Uncle Iroh from Avatar: The Last Airbender, "It's always great to believe in yourself, but a little wisdom from others is a great blessing." So,
Absolutely, dude.
So before we go, because you're not going to end an interview better than with a quote from that show, but is there just anything else you'd like to promote for Missio with I Am Cinco out now? What else you could be expecting for the near future? I know that you're currently on tour right now at the moment, but
yeah, we're on tour. Come see us. We'll be out until October 22nd. We're with Sloth Rust and Bad Flower. This tour has been really great thus far. We just had a song drop in Fortnite, which is really cool. That was a couple weeks ago that dropped. And then we have a brand new single out with Wes Borland called Good Vibrations. So I think between those three things, we're going to be pretty busy for the next few months.
Hell yeah. Looking forward to all of it. Thank you so much. Everybody, we are here with Missio, I Am Cinco. It is out now. Be sure to pick that up. We will see you next time on Heavy New York.